Hi, my name is Alan Pressel. I'm a spiritual aspirant, and I'm going to talk about things I learned about the law of cause and effect, otherwise known as karma amongst most people, and it'll be a long one. I'm sorry about it so long, but I'll get through as best I can. But, humanity is based out of a group of 60 billion people are on this evolution, and in the bottom, we have just well-meaning people. And above that, you'd have spiritual aspirants who try to do and improve themselves and in so doing and help others also. Above them is probationers. And probationers got their evolution in both hands and are setting themselves up for the next lifetime to get initiation. Um, if you get a feeling in your solar plexus when anyone's talking to you, or you're attending a lecture, or you're reading a book for that matter, watching something on television or on the internet, and you feel something in solar plexus, there's three reasons. There's three things that could cause that. One, it is not for you. Two, you're not ready. Three, it might not be true. And that includes everything I say also. If you have a feeling in your heart and above, then it's time. Um, but first of all, my suggestion to you is whenever you're listening to anyone else, don't touch your hands together on your lap or in front of your stomach. Um, if you have your hands together touching, you're processing everything with your lower self and your personality. If you have your hands apart, you're processing information with your higher self. And this, a lot of people don't understand that. Even people that do know this, they have a tendency to forget about it anyways. Um, there's there's no point talk about global conflict before I first talk about human, a minor amount of personality and conflicts, individuals, just to give a background to conflict in general and pain. Make a triangle. Doesn't matter how big it is or which way it's pointed. It's got 3 points on it. One point, right stimulation. And if people are out of balance in their life on the stimulation or over involved with it, they'll have a tendency to be like what we call adrenaline junkies. They seek sensation all the time. They could be passion addicts in interpersonal, when in relationships, it could be a passion addict. Security, people that are overwhelmed by security, they're out of balance. It's not totally balanced on security level. They're dominated by fear. They could be dominated by fear, real and imaginary. And with fear, many times it's locked into anger. Identity. Identity is a little different. It's a little harder to explain. Identity. Um, uh, it could be blind devotion. They're attached to a cause, a group, a religion, a political spectrum, and they make this their identity. And on an individual basis, it could be out of control with the tattoos, blind devotion. A lot of people that are over identity as a problem. They're I'm above others, I'm superior, and others are less than. And they're not. They may not be open to suggestion, debate, negotiation. Um, I got this stimulation identity security from high school. This is a long time ago. So I'm talking like 1970, possibly. And I know some magazines and shows on television. They talk about it's not power, the stimulation, security, identity. It's power, sex, and money. Well, if it fits, I guess, keep with it. Um, Law number 21: measure and weigh others by their action, not by their words. Um, Cause and effect. And back to relationships. Blanket statements are a cancer to relationships. Whenever you say, you always, you never. That's a blanket statement, and individuals do it, and so do governmental bodies. They do that with others, and even though another country or nation could have like 10 different tribes or races in it, they'll condemn them for the activity of the few. Uh, the experts, this happens in relationships, very sneaky people and people who, by design, in larger organizations, disguise a value clash as a needs conflict. Um, And needs is two farms side by side, both dairy farms, and one doesn't look after his fence, and his cows run over there, and they're eating for 12 hours, eating his neighbor's hay. Well, this is a needs conflict. A value conflict is someone that they're not as smart as you, they're not as wealthy as you, they're not as good looking as you, and therefore I don't like them. Maybe I'll separate myself and minimize the amount of time, and I'll just disregard most things they say. That's a value clash. Um, okay, before you were born, you're shown 1,000 cards, and some of these are positive and some of these are negative. Both are necessary for your learning. In order to burn off a lot of negative karma, most people have a tendency, a year before they're born, to pick way too much. It's just because they want to reduce their debt load, their karmic debt load. And they choose more than they could safely bear. But with advisement, and there's endless amount of counseling and helpers, they bring them down to more realistic choices. Um, so this includes in one group, there's events and conditions which you will experience that you must go through. And the second group, the other group, which is probably the largest group of things you select for your learning, is possibilities. They may or may not happen depending on your behavior and or your nation's behavior and attitudes. And the third group, you may have something in your family line that may have a really harmful DNA marker in there, and you may be exempt from that, even though everyone else in that family line has it. If it is determined that you don't need to experience that, it can be withheld. Law 16, there is no such thing as punishment. There is only learning. I'll talk more about that later. Even Edgar Casey, in your entire life, there's no surprises, nothing at all. From 1800 on to year 2000 and 200, there's no surprise. Everyone born, there's no surprises. Wars, climate, the whole thing. Everything is shown to you before you're born. Edgar Casey said, you pick the learning, we pick the onset, the intensity, and the duration. And a quote another teacher said, and we assure you that no soul shall be brought to bear more than it can withstand. This includes you as an individual, family, district, province, country, continent, and even the whole globe. Okay, children. I almost left this one out. Sudden infant death. A soul has 365 days to decide whether it's going to stay with that family or not. If one does die, it is nothing because the family wasn't a good parent, or they didn't look after it, or they missed a medical thing. No. If probably another family somewhere may be having a child shortly, in the next 5 or 7 years, and this one may be, one, more suitable, two, it may belong to their group, and they want all souls have very large groups. We're in very, very large groups. I don't want to put a number on because I don't know, but they sort of come in waves, and everyone wants to come in with their own group. So, I thought that would take some of the pressure off people that have unexplained deaths in their family. Children to 7 years old, they can burn off karma with one of these three diseases. Now, this is my my information is old, is measles, mumps, and chickenpox. When I turned 7 years old, I got chickenpox, measles at the same time. I was so sick, delirious. I remember soaking the whole bed every night, every day from just sweating. I don't. I was hallucinating. I was hearing fights and people screaming and crying and arguments and all sorts of things. And me and my grandma were the only ones in the house. Oh, it was awful. And actually, it was about 3 weeks after I learned that in Catholic school, I learned that the priest comes along and give you your last rites. So I thought I was getting the last rites, and it wasn't Father Brown. It was the doctor coming to have a look at me. He didn't get too close either. He said it was fine. That was so. Children, all parents will be talking about this openly. This is just around the corner with schools, and parents got to watch right at the seventh birthday. Uh, Some of them have nothing. Who knows? And the next one, which is even more, can be more traumatic, is 14 years old. On the 14th birthday, this is global. This isn't just some countries. They have former aspects of the emotional self, the astral emotional, drop into them. This can be frightening, at least uncomfortable. And so when this is talked about in public and people understand this, well, we can take 14 years old, don't plan any trips or lots of visits, don't have big birthday parties, and maybe have it a couple of days in advance. Help these ones out. Um, Across Europe, all the plagues, they were karmic application. Next one, diabetes. 40% of diabetes is karmic. Um, um, Quote, you refuse to control your energy with alcohol and drugs. Now you'll have to control your energy every day. End of quote. Um, my contribution into diabetes, I believe, and some doctors, I don't know where I got this from 5 or 6, 7 years ago, that the biggest contributor to diabetes is stress. And some people have to handle the same episode differently. Some may have a bit of stress and 3 or 4 hours later forgot about an event, but some people carry it for a long time. Especially if you go to bed with it, go to sleep on stress. The other thing that I learned only a few years ago was seed oils, grain oils. I'm sure if I squash some vegetable or corn or um, oats or barley, good oil out of it, I'm sure it would be healthy if I rubbed it on my skin or consumed it. But something happens between the time it's harvested and the time it's delivered to the stores. So look that up. In actual fact, almost 100 years ago, one teacher said grains are meant for the animal kingdom. Uh, Policies, all the policies are karmic. Most of the policies are super critical of themselves, which is against the law. You're owned by someone else, your creator, your great original designer, and super critical of others. If this is in your family line, have your children learn early that they got to make a priority tolerance and acceptance of others. Homosexual, 30% karmic. Misuse of the divine sex function. Quote, you refuse to limit your sexual activity. Now limits will be placed on you. Um, it's out of control. Sex function. People are obsessed with it. Um, and I'm talking really obsessed, but I'm not talking about someone that, that has a normal, healthy sexual attitude. It is a divine gift, divine sex function, and that's their punishment. I believe this will be publicly accepted just around the corner, and we'll understand it, and we'll help them out. Well, I have noticed from a very educated gay friend, he said that some of the gay people in the male community are just totally out of control. And he said it is an embarrassment and a shame to him to think that people may think that he's like that also. 6% need minimal psychological help. Their confidence level is very low. And fear level of genders, maybe something happened in their childhood. They didn't have a clear gender role. Um, this will be talked about publicly in the future. More acceptable attitudes what will come of this. Um, there's another thing in this missing 10%, and I'm on my own here, and I wish I'd have asked for more information. Usually we switch between male and female in our different lifetimes, uh, like maybe 3 or 4 times, maybe five. I could be off on that. And some you have free will. Some have spent many times in one gender. Now this, I'm taking a wild guess. This may be because of the amount of wars the last 400 or 500 years. That and a lot of people that stayed female or for many lifetimes, and then they dropped into a male, they may exhibit feminine preferences. And this is nothing to be ashamed of. It's just they're going to have an awkward life. There's no reason to condemn them or if there's something wrong or something's biologically wrong or they're missing enzymes or endocrine upset. I, I believe it's against the law for them to go have surgery um, and force them back into another gender because you picked it before you were born. The other problem was a little different, and that's when someone's been males for way too many lifetimes, and some of them drop into female. And these people, some of them, a very small fraction of them exhibit just way too much sexual activity. Um, I have a I have a question and a riddle for you. What happens to people, homosexual haters? What happens to them? Maybe you'd be a good karmic lord. Schizophrenia. They're hearing their own voices. They don't need an exorcist. They are hearing their own voices. They've been absolutely and unusually cruel and forceful on other people. I do know of one case, and I believe it's about 1950, 1960 in Spain. There was a demonstration. It was allowed to show people what obsession really looked like. So I guess that individual volunteered to have that happen. I can't remember the name of the individual. Um, we just need help schizophrenics through their life um, and let them know that they're not alone. Okay, let's get more exacting ones. Okay, in the UK newspaper, I think it was less than 10 years ago, a little bit more than 10 years ago, a young woman reported to the news media and the police that her father frequently sexually abused her from age 14 to I think it was 22. So um, the one I look to get information about the world, spiritual information and laws and whatever, he's also the world teacher, one of the 5 official spokespersons on the globe. Said was letters are written to him. He's letters going, how can there be a God if he allows this to happen? This is just awful, and this would carry on like this. And he said right away, he said the father was the daughter, and the daughter was the father in the previous life. And before that, the daughter was the father, and the father was the daughter. So these people did 3 laps together. And law number 22, there is no punishment. There's only learning. So they didn't learn to do another 10 more like that. They'd be forced together. They'd be unable to not have a part of each other's lives. Um, so there is no tooth for a tooth, tat for a tit, or an eye for an eye. There is only punishment. There's no punishment. There's only learning. Um, Okay, which I'm really aiming for, national relationships and conflict and cause and effect. Many leaders pose a conflict of values as a conflict of needs disguised. Um, my instructor for counseling and psychotherapy, um, he wrote a letter to Prime Minister of Israel and Yasser Arafat, who was the leader of Palestinian people, and he offered his services at conflict resolution. They accepted, and they were to meet at either, I don't know if it was Transjordan or Lebanon. I think they met in Lebanon, and at the last minute, the Prime Minister of Israel couldn't attend, so he sent his number two or number three man. I can't remember, and to take his place, and he's pretty conservative and didn't brag about any outcome, so I don't really know what the outcome was. Whether anything significantly had happened, I believe it had done so, changed attitudes about each other to each other. And a month or so after the meeting, Yasser Arafat wrote a letter to my instructor and said he had never felt so listened to in his entire life. End of quote. Um, Good on you, good instructor, to volunteer to do that. Law number 6, you're judged by your efforts, not your results. This this is the purpose of diplomacy, and to hear people out, even if you don't agree with it all the way. If you listen carefully, you will find out how this need or want originated from. Um, Example, security. You know, well, why are you afraid? They never attacked you before. Yeah, but he has 250,000 soldiers parked on our border. I think that's a valid thing. It's an exaggeration. And here I'm going to make friends here in this part. Source is some problems in the houses of faith, religions, churches. Um, all the great teachers, and there's hundreds of them. Asoka Buddha, Guru Nanak, Jesus, Gautama Buddha, Mohammed, Mohammed, never wrote a word down. They did not write a single word down. It's their followers' responsibility to record. If they make mistakes, add on to, embellish, exaggerate, make omissions, or completely do 180 on something, there's nothing that be done by the teacher. Yeah, that's his karma. The exception to this is about 30, 40 years ago, there was a Greek initiate, it was a fourth degree soul. He was allowed to write, and he came back. His lifetime was just, and I gave that book, I lent that book away, or in my moves, I lost it because it's not on that shelf over there. Find out who that is. He only writes perfection. I'm sure of it, and it was pretty impressive. So seek him out. Also, every house of faith, religion, was given a key, and the Hebrews were given 2 keys. When the official spokesperson of the world teacher came to my neighborhood, uh, gosh, 30 years, more than 30 years ago, I got to ask him what are the keys? He wouldn't tell me. Tell us, he thought I wanted to know exactly what the keys were. I just want to know what a key was. I kind of have an idea that they got something to build their house of faith around. They use this. This is the primary focus that meant that day, that time, that place and time for that race, root race, and sub race. That was what they can carry forward. Um, the hard part. We're attached to our religious dogma and beliefs without question. But we know inside us, beneath our level of thinking, beneath our level of awareness, that's that place in you where there's no words. When you have a feeling about something and you don't have a word for it, that's what people call subconscious. And there are many errors and mistakes and omissions and flaws in all these houses of faith and religions. And when there's any, and this is made a point of tension inside the individuals and in groups. And when there's any criticism, the reaction is completely out of proportion, the anger and the defense. And they're willing to kill someone because it's like tickled that weak point. That point is boiling away inside something. It's already starting to simmer. And all it needs an outside poke with a little stick and it erupts. This attachment is called blindness, causes blindness and intolerance. Um, a case well known, I'm not going to go into it too much. Salman Rushdie was frustrated that he didn't experience God as he wanted to, as laid out in his religion. He became frustrated and turned on his religion, and there was a death sentence ordered on him. I believe he's still alive. No offense to him, that came from one of my teachers, said that long time ago. There were a lot of alternations. They need to be measured closely and see if they fit, and not from outside people uh, judging someone else's religion on the inside theirs. You ever needs to take the wise people and look inside their house of faith and see what was could have could have been altered, could be changed now, because people have evolved past the level of their houses of faith, without exception, almost all of them. Um, Emperor Constantine, the Council of Nicosia, I think around it was around 330 or 320 AD. They removed about three-quarters of the New Testament. Nation's karma. Here, boy, here making friends here, hey, rapidly. On the first shelf comes wind. Okay. Oh, tornadoes. Our weather and our Earth is controlled by the elementals, and there's more elementals on the globe than there are humans. There's many more, and many different kinds. The evolved ones that control the weather, and well, they're controlling the negativity on each nation. And when there's too much, it breaks away from them, and they have a hard time controlling it. So yes, it's karma. No, that wasn't metered in on purpose at a certain time, at a certain date, at a certain amount. They were actually a breakaway. Hurricanes are the opposite. They are actually karmic. Um, More on that later, I guess, some other time, another talk. The second shelf is flood. The third shelf is fire. And on the same shelf as fire is mechanical failure. It's nothing for a pedestrian, someone on a pedal bike, motorbike, car, taxi, truck, bus, railroad, ship, plane, you get the idea. For to either one, have mechanical failure, but usually it's just easier to have the individual driving it or driving near them, pedestrian, not see them, to change a signal. An example that I can remember myself, I remember, 30 years ago at least, a plane had crashed, a large plane had crashed, and they got that black box in there. And they were playing it in the documentary, and you could hear this alarm come on, and there were three or four people in the cockpit, and this alarm comes on going, I think they call it a proximity alarm. And it's very loudly, and it's yelling, and it's making a noise, and also saying pull up, or something like that. And no one commented on it, and no one heard it. No one acted on it. So it's got nothing to do with the individuals driving these things. It's just when the nation's karma has hit a certain point, it has to be expressed, and it'll be expressed now. And no one's immune. I'm not immune. None of you are immune. None of us are immune. Um, Tectonic activity, force shelf tectonic activity. So the Earth is continuously moving, islands and oceans up and down all the time. And what's the difference between it going 1 centimeter every 40 years or 40 centimeters every minute is our karmic response. Um, um, the other thing is this weather thing. That's or what they call it, global climate warming. This is due to man's inhumanity, man. All these storms. It's got nothing to do with carbon dioxide. I don't think. Not much, anyways. It does. It's contributing now. Um, Okay, I'm not picking on this country. It's just because this was so well recorded. General Custer of America. General Custer became frustrated with his inability to capture force the leaders and the males of a certain tribe. The women and children had already surrendered and were living outside of his military forts, an act of surrender. The leaders of the tribe felt they were given an unfair negotiation that they didn't deserve what was happening. They already lost the land once, and they negotiated, got a treaty. They got so-called land which they accepted, and now after that treaty, they decided to just throw that treaty away when they realized all the Native Canadians, Native Americans sitting on the prime land to give them the prime farmland with the most amount of water and the best weather, and so they decided, oh, not many of them. Let's take this too. So all these wars started out, and I don't know, they never did get much of a negotiation. Now, because he is a government agent, every single person born in that country got to carry that karma. Um, the karma applies to everyone born in the USA, then and afterward. Then this will show up your DNA in the future. Now, this is what meant by in the Old Testament that the crimes of the father will show up in the sons and the grandsons, and you may as well add in the great great grandsons and great 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 grandsons and daughters also. Um, Here's another one, different country. This one, you want to know what country it is, you're going to have to look it up because it was all in the news. The leader of nation number one, oh, something happened here. I mixed up my page. I lost my place here. Well, I can remember it anyway, so. Oh, half page. Nation number one had a severe incident take place on its soil, on its territory. Nation number two offered weapons, military hardware. A very large and enormous order was reported in the media, worldwide media. The world teacher, who has over 600 names throughout history, warned the leader of this oil-producing nation that tragedy would occur if he made continue with his purchase in a dream. The reason why it was unlawful because he had no enemies. This country had no enemies. The leader of Nation 1 did nothing after the warning dream. He then was given a second dream, more detailed. He still did nothing. So, and I don't know if it was the third day or 2 days later, he was woke up, stood upright in his bedroom, and he got a vivid image of Saudi Arabia being overwhelmed by earthquakes and losing 100% of its oil capacity and its oil production. He canceled the sale. This is reported in the media. That's not the end. Shortly afterwards, there was an oil rig failure, explosion, and catastrophic fire. Many people died. If you seek out the owners of this oil rig on the day that it failed, you will know who created an event in Saudi Arabia that made the leader of Saudi Arabia make a hasty panic order of weapons. Next. At a point of death, a person's progress is measured and applied to their country of origin. If a person's life is cut short by another country due to war and or conflict, then the aggressor country is responsible for that individual's progress until the progress that was planned for the individual in the first country is caught up. So that could be 1, 2, 3, or 20 lifetimes. And that has to be like that, and everyone knows that. Um, so if you're unexpectedly killed at, at 20 years of age um, due to the action of another country, that country is responsible for you. If there is a small birth rate later in the aggressor country and a lot of souls are interrupted, the souls interrupted gets priority for birth rates. Riddle. Where do the aggressors next lives? Where are they born? Actually, I don't know. But that's why it's a riddle. Um, I'm not picking any country, but this is the only one that this example was given to me. Nuclear tests. This Tsar bomb from Russia, I think it was 1954, they dropped an enormous bomb and exploded up in the atmosphere. 97% of the harmful effects were removed from humanity. Um, that's the most they can pull out. They cannot stop all of it, but at that time, I believe China, Russia, France, UK, and America had atomic bombs. And if this 97%, if this 97% wasn't reduced, this would have removed all humanity from the globe, would have died, would have perished, and all the animal life too. And it would have destroyed the magnetosphere. The magnetosphere was made for our protection. We were unable to withstand. We're unable to withstand outside radiation is so large. We're unable to withstand the energy yet. So this would have destroyed the magnetosphere, and I don't think they'd be making a second one for us. Okay, America had an underwater underground nuclear test, and no one was killed, but cause and effect, you harm her body, our Tara, her name is Tara. You harm her body, there's a reaction somewhere else. This caused an earthquake and landslides in Pakistan, and there were many deaths. It's a direct result. Pakistan had an underground nuclear test, and the rebound for this, the repercussion was there was an earthquake and many deaths in Chile. Having the nuclear test underground doesn't really hold back much. It holds back like a couple of percent. A kilometer of lead holds back radiation, harmful radiation, like a forest full of large trees holds back a bee. Our radiation is not only poisoning Earth, but there are some organs of reproduction in outer space. There's no such thing as empty space. Also, they only take out 97% because that's their limit. The 3% is accumulating and is showing up in every person over a year old on Earth. It's got radiation in them. And this is, as I said, my other talk, the short one, that this is accumulating in humans and causing a dementia. This is not vascular dementia. This is not infection, dementia caused by infection or injury. This is infection. This is dementia caused by radiation poisoning. People will be going to work, and then at the end of the day, they won't know who they are or where they live. They may know, and this will be affecting people younger and younger and younger. This will overwhelm some countries alone because they'll be so young. I wasn't gonna bring up this part, because I know this is happening now. Somewhere between 1972 and 1975, the Soviet Union was experimenting with directed beam energy weapons. The news media in Canada reported as weather changing weapons or something like that. I don't know if they call it weapons or not. The Soviet Union, the only people allowed to talk freely amongst themselves with others in other countries was the scientists. Military didn't, obviously. Political didn't, but the scientists still had access to each other. And after this energy weapon was created, they asked the American scientists to see a demonstration. So the Americans arrived at a place which I believe, I'm taking a guess, it was a huge harbor where they have abandoned naval vessels, half rotten. Some of them were sunk already. And they said to the American scientists, pick a ship, any ship, but pick a ship. So they picked a ship, and then a minute or so later, the thing was melted. They completely destroyed it. The American scientists rushed home like they were supposed to, told the U.S. government, the American government, which they were supposed to do, and also their military. And they thought they were tricked. They thought it was some kind of elaborate hoax of mirrors or something like that. But when President Reagan heard of this, when he got in power, that's when he announced his Star Wars mission or whatever project. Back to the Soviet scientists, they did not trust their government. They figured they might go on the attack because there was so much hatred. So they disassembled their equipment, the weapons, and they reported to the government that it didn't work. It was a waste of money. So now I think, um, but however, uh, I'm not sure the date. The person that told me, the witness didn't give me a date. I believe the Soviet scientists tested this out on Canada in the middle of nowhere, just near the Alaskan border, up north, way up north near the Alaskan border. But it was really close. The American Air Force could fly over from Alaska, and I guess Canadian Air Force could go have a look too. And also, passenger aircraft could see it also. I don't know if about roads. I'm not sure. There's not many roads up there now. I can't think there'd be much population where this happened. And everyone was told to be quiet, not say a word. But I believe that the Canadian government knew it was coming, even if they did or did not agree to it, that it was just a demonstration, because we never heard a word of it. If they if they would have screamed blue murder if they didn't know about it. They didn't say a word, so I think that they knew of it or gave them permission. I believe the USA and UK, maybe even France, got directed beam energy weapons. There was someone on TV saying they could move, these people could move the weather and whatnot. And, in so testing them and having severe damage put in the Earth's body, enough to trigger a catastrophic event. Even though the testing, no one was killed, you harm the Earth's body and you get payback. Okay, this is the part. Right now, Russia is testing multiple places in Siberia, and I have a feeling, I don't know if this came from outside people or if it's an internal thing. I think that some of these weapons were used in Hawaii and Peru just recently, along with the one in the Yukon in Canada from decades and decades ago. And a Japanese government official said that Japan had experienced a beam energy weapon did something to the weather or something like, I don't know when it was. Because he was a government official, I thought I should do that. I wasn't originally going to include this in the talk, but I'm going to talk about something else about it does have something to do with directed beam energy weapons. The Atlantean continent was a solid landmass from Egypt to the Florida Everglades, Lake Okeechobee. It slowly receded by natural process down to two small islands, the Azores in the east and an island just off off the east coast of Florida. The masters and their aspirants, probationers, initiates, disciples walked freely among the people. So did the Dark Lodge. Now I know the Dark Lodge now The Dark Lodge consists of 6 Orientals and 6 Occidentals, but I don't know what they did then. They also walked along, and they were actually had a more dominant influence at the end. They were convinced more people to be like them, follow them, than the actual masters. They were also playing with directed beam energy weapons. So enough is enough. The masters took all their students, disciples, and aspirants and left for the Pyrenees in the east and the Andes and then the Rockies later. 10 years later, 14,200 years ago. Oh, actually, I heard this 25 years ago. So 14,225 years ago, it was decided to destroy the rest of the Atlantean continent. Um, the geography was different, obviously, up in northern Canada, but there was a huge ice dam, which I believe was near Labrador, Baffin Island, in that region, and it was a couple of kilometers thick. And so this was destroyed on purpose. This was let loose. A 2, 3 kilometer high wall of fresh water came in into the Atlantic, into the north western Atlantic, overwhelmed the 2 islands, probably killed 90% of the occupants in these 2 remaining islands, and broke through at Gibraltar. And not many people died, or some died, because there were 6 Noahs. Not one, 6 Noahs. Oh, sorry, there's no boat. There was no ark. The Hebrews like a good, like a good story. So the ark thing and the animals to it too was to make it more interesting for children, I believe. I think that's yeah. So that's not the end of it. Sorry about the no boat thing, no ark. Um, North America was inhabited by the original Hebrew. I created him of the dust of the earth, and I breathed into his nostrils. I breathed life through his nostrils. He was a mineral body. He were very tall, 7 to 12 feet tall, and I don't know why. I know all sorts of skeletons exist, but you will never be able to find one. Um, the people that became the North American Indians and Canadian natives killed them all. Now, I do not know if this includes Central America and South America. I have no idea. But they killed. It took a long, and they had no reason to. They just did it. So may I understand something there. Actually, wasn't going to include that Latino, but I'm glad I did. Can't take it out now. What's bringing this planet to the point of total destruction is indifference, complacency, and attachment. Indifference. I don't care about others' suffering, needs, or pain. Complacency. Even if we are concerned, we do nothing to help. Attachment. A little bit more. The attachment of tribes, races, sub-races, root races, houses of faith, religions, political groups, media groups, clubs, financial groups prone to narrow mindedness of others' ideas and especially blind to their own faults, flaws, and weaknesses. Um, Law number 10. If your country is attacked and you do not help your country, you're guilty of treason. Law number 11. If another country is under attack and you send weapons and people and soldiers to help and do not ask your population or your soldiers for permission, you commit treason. And one country, the American war in Vietnam, 50 to 60,000 dike workers were killed, and about the same amount died in the next 30 years of diseases and suicide. It's awful. And this was an undeclared war. This was actually just dike workers. Now we've got dike workers all over in Ukraine, and I guess we've got dike workers going to Taiwan. Um, I just yesterday, today, I found out a ship from the Netherlands. They sent a naval ship full of dike workers to Taiwan for some reason. I guess they hurt their feelings or something. Um, Nations, identity is sacred. Germany, 1982. The government claimed that the youths were pro-Nazi and started riots just for the sake of rioting. That's actually not true. The reason why they were rioting, they felt the loss of their national identity. They lost their borders. You could just drive anywhere. Anyone can come in. They lost their currency. They had to use a different currency. And it wasn't a priority that someone come in, learn any of their German language at all. And it is one of those feelings that was originally operated, it's beneath their level of awareness. The frustration is operating before they had defined words and descriptions on it. A nation's identity is sacred. A lot of people don't like Margaret Thatcher of United Kingdom of England, and she favored the European Economic Community, what was called the Common Market. She thought that was a great idea. She did not favor the European Union of political integration. Good for her. She never got any credit for that. All ever did, even her own group turned on her. National identity is sacred. If it had kept her way, if she wasn't in power and they had still had it kept that way, only say in the common market, I believe, this is my opinion, they would not have had Brexit. Currency, money, is a symbol of a nation's energy. Um, America versus Canada. There's no point including that in America. When they made it was the states were all like virtually miniature countries, and the central government was powerless. Whereas in Canada, did the opposite. Canada made one large central government, and the provinces and territories were almost without borders. They weren't really defined very well. And Canada, I believe, did a good job by decentralizing the central government and applying more powers and more rights to the territories and provinces. And I'm glad they did it. And by the way, everyone in Canada, if Canada can't succeed, no one in the world can. That's our job. Think on that. Nation's identity is sacred. Ireland now is rebelling against the loss of national identity. June 2024. I was afraid at first to bring this in. I have so many friends I've known so many people from Eastern Europe, South Europe, North Europe. I have no idea where their opinions stand. I don't take sides. I increase information. Ukraine had a 3-hour meeting. Viktor Yanukovych was the leader, prime minister of Ukraine, and he announced to his business leaders and a lot of his business people were there too, businessmen were there too, and he said, we're going to apply to join the European Union. And the only people that said anything were the businessmen, the Ukrainian businessmen that have businesses in the east near Russia, because I have a lot of Russian speaking Ukrainians and I will lose business. It will drop out. He said, don't worry about it. I'll look after it. It's fine. Now, is that the sign of someone that is pro-Russian and anti-EU? So he comes back, and this part is not talked about much, but the terms he was given, I believe, Victor was given terms that other countries didn't have to have. I believe it was not. The world teacher says the lowest goal is mutual interdependence. I believe the EU dictated terms this or that, no in between, not both. You have to choose one or the other. And he was startled by the fact that he will be insulting someone he's been in business with and living beside forever, and that he would have to make laws and practices against them, omitting and cutting off some. They dictated terms to him to the rest of the EU did not have to follow. I looked that up. So 3 months later, he signed an economic deal with Russia, and this was used for a planned event in Ukraine. So everyone knows what happened after that. Hey, let's go back in history. Like I said, I'm not going. Everyone has their own opinion about that. I don't have any specific opinion, but the Office of Ukrainian Nationals, OUN, I think they existed 1966 and 1976. I am unsure about that. They were vicious people that were thought that only one language should exist and everyone else is inferior, and they truly were racist, and they murdered 300,000 to 250,000 Polish-speaking Ukrainians, plus 36,000 Russian police that were protecting them. Entirely funded by, drumroll please, CIA of America and the German secret police. I don't know what they're called. And this extreme identity, intolerance, and source of hatred is exposed here. It's bizarre. There's more to it. I find it hard to figure out. The strange thing is, Poland forgave Ukraine extremists for the murders of the Polish living in Ukraine, and Poland, much of Poland hates Russia, even though Russia lost 36,000 police defending the Poles, and they forgave Ukraine. Yeah, I don't know what their official opinion is. They didn't care how many people they killed or who they killed, as long as Russia was attacking itself. That serves people on the other side just fine. I even know what you call that. Sick. Oh, we got more. 1948, the Berlin blockade of food, heating fuel, and supplies and medicine. Berlin was blocked in and completely surrounded by East Germany, which is a part of Russia, part of the Soviet Union. And a pilot told me many of those planes were empty. And Stalin, back to Stalin, could have negotiated a peaceful end to this sudden war with Hitler. I think he needed fuel and some ore or something, which Russia had, and possibly grain. And but he didn't. He stayed fighting to please UK and USA, and the deal was they're going to give him money, cash, and loans, and technological help, which he really badly wanted to join, have Soviet Union become a part of the West and have strong ties with them. The 48 Berlin blockade was because UK and USA were given money that was slated for the Soviet Union, gave Soviet Union's money to their enemy Germany. It made Stalin look like a fool. And one of my teachers made a mistake and said that was the greatest spiritual thing that ever was accomplished by America was the Marshall Plan, but it was with money and items that they should have included the Soviet Union. Lost 27 million people in this, and they never got compensated. I mean, I know they sold a whole bunch of technological equipment and manufacturing equipment out of Germany. I know that. Oh, I almost forgot. There were some exemptions to the blockade. I used to hitchhike and take the bus up to the university an hour away from my house. It's amazing to find the stuff you find in there when I was 14, 15. 16, and there was an exemption to the blockade. Food, heating fuel, and medicine. Tell that to your government diplomat. Um, so that just goes to show you how news is bent, and the governments are twisted, and even our memories are flawed. They gave Soviet designated money to Germany, its enemy. The Allies, when they started the war against Germany, they fought 3 divisions. The Soviet Union fought 200 divisions. Hi. Oh, I was on the EU website. I tried to look up about Ukraine and Georgia, I think. I can't remember if it's Georgia or Romania. Georgia. And it just goes on. It's diplomatic speak. And the, there's a section there, a segment, its own little segment. It says condition for Ukraine and Georgia. When you click on it, it says it's unable to open because it's a different kind of file. It was you need a certain thing to open it. So, but I clicked on it about 6 times really fast and it opened up. And this whole lengthy file come in, makes your head swim. None of it, just that sort of language some people use when they spent too many years in university. And, I come to one part that said the Ukraine and Georgia shall exhaust all possibilities of diplomatic and ambassadorial avenues before engaging in conflict with any neighbor's borders on the border. I don't think I need to comment on that. I wonder if that's still up there. I just downloaded this a couple of months ago. But, I wonder if it's still there. Oh, yeah. Okay, I'm going to talk about some of the groups on the globe, things that they must understand to progress. The Central African blacks, you're in the Central African black body, no matter where you are, you need to understand the physical body, its desires, its weaknesses. You need to rise up. You need to control it and rise above it. China will collapse under its own weight if you don't become more positive. Now, this is a 40-year-old message, and you must resolve. This is my own addition. You must resolve the issue with Tibet. Tibet was never part of China. China was never part of Tibet. There's a completely different race, sub-race, root race. When an area is taken over by another, there's a point of tension that never goes away. And the Chinese people, race, are capable of inflicting extreme cruelty on themselves and on others. This must be recognized and understood and rise above it. Native Americans and Native Canadians, I do not know if this includes Central America and South America, have the most difficult body on the planet. They are the most difficult subrace on the planet to progress in. Um, they have to understand the astral emotional, control it, and rise above it. And there's a problem that should be talked about today. This will be talked about publicly in the future to address this. Some other races, subrace, root race can go into a Native American, Native Canadian body, maybe. They're on the slow path and their lives are far apart, I believe. But that in a Native American body, Canadian, they can't go into the black body. They have free will. They were magnetically attracted in by their groups came in, but because there's not enough body, there's not enough humans in that race, in that subrace, for them to all be born. Um, they force a way into a black body, which they have the right to do so, one they can't control. So if they weren't very well developed, they would have to take one that uh, uh, take one at that same level. You can't go in a body that's above you. So if it's a junior soul and they get stuck with a very junior black body, they can lead to violence. They cannot control violence. And this is not anyone's fault. This is just something that happened. And we have to understand that. And we have to care for these people as much as we can. Oh boy. White people and the Hebrews. Rationalization and justification will be your downfall. You have to learn how to control, understand the mental body, control it, and rise above it. My favorite philosopher on the planet, he was the Greek Diogenes. Uh, he Greek writings say he carried a lamp, which he did, and they said he was looking for an honest man. That's not true. This is the first example of mainstream media. I think could have been clay tablets, tap, tap, tap. Was this first time known example of media and history distorted to alter the truth, to save embarrassment and ridicule. He carried a lamp. He was looking for the rarest thing on earth, an open mind. Thank you. I have more coming later. Okay. Law 21. You will get the leaders you so justly deserve. Okay, let's talk about the Antichrist. It's so many. I wasn't going to include this. I have to. The Antichrist, ANTE, pre-Christ. Raw energy released from the leader of the planet on humanity. When the pot is put on the stove, it comes to boil, and all is seen, and all is comes to the surface. So everything's exaggerated. Um, so people that a little bit spiritual might become more, start to engage in activity. People in the middle of the road could go either way. People are a little bit selfish. They're a little bit, I don't know, they're a little bit negative. Maybe they're obsessed with material things. They're obsessed with sex, obsessed with power. They'll be driven into activity in these fields to be exaggerated, and this is planned and on purpose. The first time I know about it, that we know about in the recent years, Nero brought in Nero to slowly disassemble the Roman Empire. Next, it went into Hitler halfway through World War I, 1913 to 1945. Went and three people around Hitler, Ed Mussolini, and the Emperor of Japan. Doing so, these people became over-focused on the material world. I'm not going to get into all the names. Um, and the Dark Lodge came in and actually obsessed and took over Hitler. He told his doctor he had a pain in his solar plexus all the time. And he was very, he truly, he's not the same man he was when he lived in Liverpool. He lived in Liverpool. He was fascinated with England and all the ships and everything like that. And he was nothing like he was when he was back to Germany. Became obsessed. And Hitler was a sexual fanatic. When his brother immigrated to Canada, the RCMP, the police interviewed him. Well, what can you tell me about him? This is before the war started. And his brother said, well, he asked me if he could date my daughter, his nephew. And I said, yeah, sure. He goes, a few days later, the daughter told her father, because he is the most sickest sexual pervert that could ever be beyond imagination. And that's all we know about him. details at 11. Mussolini, the Dark Lodge could not hang on to them, and the Dark Lodge is 6 Orientals, 6 Occidentals. So they didn't get very far, Mussolini, and the Emperor of Japan actually knew they couldn't win the war. They went in the war anyways, just for valor and whatever. The Dark Lodge, after the Soviet Union changed, it couldn't do anything in the Soviet Union. My own belief is, this is mine and mine only, the Soviet Union advancement was held back by so many people in prison. It's enough to overwhelm the country, and much labor got to be done to keep this down to a minimum. So after they left Europe, after they left Eastern Europe, the Dark Lodge focused on Argentina and the UK, and we had the war in what, 1980. I can't remember. Um, the UK, a lot of old souls from the so-called Roman Empire, the gross materialists, are attracted to England today. Um, um, and after Argentina, UK, they focused on the Zionists, former Yugoslavia, and the Pentagon. And the Antichrist was released again in the year 2000. Um, and the Antichrist, one of the teachers said, when I relieve the Antichrist, I will drive husband against wife and brother against brother. So everything's stimulated. Everyone's turned into activity and opinions. And thank you for listening to me. And the preferred posture you have is don't believe in every single thing as blanket acceptance of anyone, including what I say. Um, and don't reject it either. The whole thing all in a blanket term. Um, what you're not sure of, put on the shelf and talk with others about this and see how you feel. Um, and goodbye, and don't forget, decide, commit, act.